What is the most common problem that you have experienced within teams? Gosh, that is a difficult one. Experience myself or experience from others? Those are two different ones, because I have very specific teams. I invite only people in who believe in my vision and who are very motivated, etc. So I only have super motivated people that love working with me for the new products and services that I try to create. So I would say for other teams elsewhere, I hear that motivation is often a problem. It is getting people be interested in agile transformations, or getting them to be advocates of new lean agile practices. I do not have that problem myself. I have super motivated people. The problem that I find in my business is usually we don't know which way to run, because there's so many options, there's so many ideas. It's very hard to stick to a certain practice, with some exceptions. But we try Lean Canvas, and then half of it works and half of it doesn't. And we try OKRs, and it didn't really work for us. And then we try North Star metric, and it works, but not perfectly. And so I know that our main struggle with my teams is trying the practices and figuring out which ones work for our context. And that just takes a lot of experimentation, a lot of retros that we have to do with ourselves. But I think that's a good problem to have, because I have motivated people. So we will figure it out at some point. And things will stabilize, I'm pretty sure. It's just that the business can change direction frequently, because we're startups, and that means that the practices that were working fine suddenly are not working anymore, because we're now running in a different direction because of a different opportunity. We're pivoting. That is part of life. So the chaos is sometimes hard to deal with as a startup. And as I said, for other teams elsewhere, I think it is motivation often. That is what people come to me quite regularly. Jurgen, how do I motivate my teams? I just had a similar question just last week. Nobody wants to change. What do I do? So, well, just fire everyone. No, but I cannot fire them. Well, then fire yourself. Go somewhere else. I mean, what can I do? Of course, there are other things that you need to do. First is figuring out what is their intrinsic motivation, maybe with moving motivators cards, and then figuring out how can you address that intrinsic motivation with the kind of work that they do. And I'm sure a number of people can be motivated, or they can motivate themselves that way. But some people, no, they just, either you have to put them on a different project that they don't bother anyone anymore, and you just close the door and you'll go throw away the key. Or you yourself move somewhere else, because very often it's a cultural problem in organizations that people have been working for years at a certain company, and things will only change when the environment changes. Otherwise, they're not there. They will stay stuck in that operating mode. No.
Okay, thank you so much. So the second question, this is probably more personal. Okay, in which stage is management 3.0?
In which stage is Management 3.0? In 6, it is scaling up. So we have a product that works very well, the business works, we have a team that knows exactly what to do. It has grown faster even since I left, and that was a year and a half ago, maybe nearly 2 years. So now there are 400 people. Revenue has doubled last year compared to the year before, so I'm very proud of the team. And now I'm just a shareholder, because I focus on other stuff. So this is typical. I mean, if your revenue doubles, then probably you're in scaling mode. Hopefully they double again in a couple of years. That would be awesome for me as a shareholder. But at the same time, I have used the money from the scaling mode to invest in a new generation already. That's pretty early, but technically it is possible as teenagers to get kids. Often it is recommended to do a little bit later as young adults, because you will have more money and stability in your life. But yeah, I've already used part of the income to start a new generation of products. Yeah.
Okay, so next one. How can we measure innovation? And I will add, how can we measure if we are investing enough in innovation?
Gosh, how can we measure innovation? I don't think you can measure innovation that easily. How can you measure love? I have no idea. How many WhatsApps you get from your from your spouse when you're away from home? I don't know. So very difficult question to answer. There's a typical question of I know it when I see it. I see innovation when it happens around me, but I have difficulty actually measuring it. The second part of the question was how much to invest in it. Was that?
How do we measure if we are investing enough in innovation?
Okay, how do we measure if we are investing enough? So I read a Harvard Business Review article that said that about 30% of your of the entire innovation budget, whatever it is, should be invested in completely new disruptive ideas, and the rest can be invested in your current products, etc., because you have sustaining innovation versus disruptive innovation. And there's nothing wrong with adding new innovative ideas to products that already work. Like just 2 days ago, I did a workshop and someone said, hey, did you see this in LinkedIn? In LinkedIn, you can turn on this feature and then it finds everyone in the same room and you can easily connect to each other. And everyone, oh, this is awesome. Oh, everyone was taking their phones out and connecting. That's innovation in an existing product. So that counts as sustaining innovation. No business model was changed. No revenue was changed, but it's just a new innovative feature added. Most of the budget of innovation probably goes to existing products because it helps those existing products and services to live longer. Because LinkedIn wants to stay relevant, of course, so they keep adding features. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure the owners of LinkedIn, and now that is Microsoft, they're investing in other ideas. What is the next thing after LinkedIn? I don't know, but probably maybe 20–30% of your budget should be spent there. How many is innovation out of your total budget as a company? I don't know. I have not seen or have not researched any percentages there. That's an interesting question to look into when I have the time. But personally, I think for me, it would be maybe 10% or something of everything that I earn that goes back into trying new innovative stuff, and the rest goes to execution, just keeping the current businesses running. Yeah.
Okay, so next one, are the stages that you have described really or always sequential?
No. So the metaphor or the analogy with the human life cycle is very useful. You saw all the parallels. Like, for example, for humans, everything changes when you become a teenager, right? We remember that, right? from those times when we were young. The same for startups, basically. Once they get to that stage 5 to 6, lots of things change because now they're going to have to behave as adults instead of kids. So the parallel, the analogy is pretty good. But unlike humans, it is possible to go back to an earlier stage. I briefly mentioned that. For example, suppose you have finished product market fit, and then you finish the rest of the business, completely validated business model, you're ready to scale up, and you just started scaling, and now you see a competitor who does exactly the same thing as you. They stole the entire idea that you've been working on for several years, and now you validated everything, so it's easy for other people to copy it. And that changes the game, right? Maybe that means you have to stop your acceleration for a moment, go back to business market fit, because part of your business model has now changed. You now have a competitor you didn't have before. Maybe you need to fix something in your business model before going back to acceleration. So going back and forth, yes, I think that is possible, because a business model is not a concrete entity like a human being is. You can easily point to a human, but you cannot easily point to a business model. It is more abstract. And also, we had some examples in my workshops where people said, well, we have this product in stage 8 that is super successful, and it is trying to stay relevant, midlife crisis. So it invests in completely new disruptive ideas. That is stage 1, 2, 3. But then actually when they are successful, they stop being independent. They're just merged with the existing products. Okay, that makes sense. So from one stage 3, 4, after 4, they join 8. Because they become part of a bigger product that has a business model that is already proven. So you should not take the model too seriously, but I think it's a very useful thinking tool to have discussions with each other. But skipping stages and going back to an earlier stage is definitely possible for business models, yeah.
Okay, great. So management 1, 2, 3. How do you imagine management 4?
Shift up.
So in how much time now? So then next one. Company seems to confuse real agile transformation with agile decoration, right?
Agile decoration?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that term. Yeah.
Look like agile, right? So what do you consider is a critical matter to start working with to set real foundations?
Can you say that again? What is the critical what?
What do you consider is a critical path to start working with in order to ensure that you have real transformation in companies, not only looking like agile?
You need buy-in from both the bottom and the top. Otherwise, it's not going to work. That is what I hear all the time and what I experienced. Not directly myself, because I'm not a coach or consultant. I just manage my own little companies, and that's enough problems already that I have. So I don't need other people's problems on top of that. But from what I have heard from my friends, lots of them are coaches and consultants. I hear all the time that bottom-up support gets you only so far, but then you stop at this ceiling of non-supportive bureaucracy from the top that has to change. So you need to have buy-in from the executive team as well. So that basically, as some people say, you have this hamburger approach, bless you. You have the hamburger approach. The top has bought into it, the teams easily buy into it, or often more easily than the middle management layer, and then you start squeezing. Squeezing the middle management layers. Because for them, lots of things change, and that's what I addressed with Manager 3.0. Because just imagine that you spend years in a traditional company climbing up the hierarchy, and it took you 15 years to become some middle manager of a business unit, and then the company says, okay, we're going to remove all the management layers. What? It took me 15 years to get here. Hell no. I'm going to resist. Of course people are going to resist. Yeah, I need to offer them something else in return. What is going to make it more interesting for them to go along with this agile transformation? What can they keep in terms of status and power and other things that they might have enjoyed while climbing up that hierarchy? So that is often what people say is the most difficult part, is in the middle. And there are hundreds of strategies there that I cannot just mention off the top of my head. But it starts, the critical path, I think, is bottom up, top down, and then squeeze. If you have support from both, then it should be possible. But only top down or only bottom up is not going to work. Yeah.
Okay, then related to this last one, what is the most important need or challenge, okay, about leadership in agile projects?
What is the most important talent about leadership in agile project? Lead by example, I would say. Always show how it is done. As Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. I have some examples of my CEO many years ago. He said he wanted people to be more disciplined. And he had a good point, because there was not much discipline. There were websites being launched that had critical flaws in them, so that we gave away free television sets and those kinds of problems. That is quite expensive problem to have when you have websites running. So we need more discipline in the organization. And then whenever someone had a meeting with him, he was 20 minutes too late. And I said, how can you expect people to have more discipline when every time we're there for a meeting with you, we have to wait for 20, 25 minutes for you to show up? You're not showing discipline. Do you think it's weird that the rest of the organization is not having any discipline? It starts, some people say the fish starts rotting at the head. So that is where the good behavior should start. If the CEO is being disciplined, then she or he is setting the right example, then others have a much easier time following that good behavior. So I have always tried to lead by example, being the first one to try new practices, being the first one to do crazy things, and then others easily follow. Sometimes, very often, enthusiastically, because they see I'm trying it and I'm willing to fail, and that's okay. So maybe that's number 2, not being afraid to fail when you're trying new things and lead by example. It's okay if half of the things or even more don't work. As long as you show people the way, that's what you are a leader for. Also in terms of the behaviors that you expect from everyone. So if the whole company is expected to be more lean and agile, how are you as a company executive team being lean and agile in the way you operate? And show that to the rest of the organization. Inspire them, and then it is pretty easy to convince them that they should follow suit.
So how to convince companies that the only goal for products or even transformations is not only economic revenue?
So how do you convince companies that they should follow products or services, you said?
How to convince companies that the only goal for products, for creating new products or facing transformations, company transformation, is not only economic revenue, if you think so.
Yeah. Okay. So how to convince? Well, as I often say, and I'm the only one, growth for the sake of growth is the purpose of a cancer cell, right? A cancer just tries to grow for no other purpose than just growing. And that is why we see it as something malicious. And the same, I think, applies to organizations in the world. Just growing for the sake of growing makes no sense. Or you're an economic cancer, basically. What is it that you're trying to bring to the world in terms of a change? And it is easily, you can easily find the data in Financial Times or elsewhere. There is evidence that companies with an inspiring purpose are on average much more successful on the stock markets and financially than those without a specific purpose, who just try to make money. And I believe part of that is because companies with a purpose that try to change something in the world, make the world a better place, have people working for them who are more enthusiastic because they love the company for what it is trying to do. So you get people who are more motivated, more inspired, and do the best they can to make that purpose happen. And that means the company will be more successful. So for the executive team and the owners of a business, it is in their own interest, even from a financial perspective, it is in your own interest to have an inspiring purpose. What is the change that we want to achieve in the world? Because your company will be more profitable. Even if that is your only goal, have more profits, come up with an inspiring purpose that people will buy into. And that is honest, so they don't think, oh, this is just fake, because there are plenty of companies with a fake purpose, and then people easily see through that, of course. So what is the purpose that you are trying to aim for? And then all of the products and services should somehow contribute to that purpose. And then, of course, more users, more revenue, etc. makes sense, because if you can make 10,000 people happy, well, why not make 10 million people happy? We will make more people happy with these products and services. Why not 1 billion people? And there you see the reason for growing, because we will be helping more people in the world. And that means we're making more money, which is awesome. So those two will come together. So there's research evidence, and I saw a Financial Times article, one of them that has the research mentioned that purposeful companies are more profitable. And any executive would love that, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay, so the next one. So you said that you have been talking with the most innovative companies in the world, and none of them use any kind of scale framework like less, safe, or something like this. So how do they scale up?
Well, they all do things their own way, but those ways look very similar. So the funny thing is that whatever Spotify did with their Spotify model, that many other businesses are now trying to copy, it makes sense, because I looked at what Taxify were doing, and I talked with Zalando in Berlin, and I was at Typeform in Barcelona, and everyone is doing very, very similar things. They all have no business units along functional lines. So no software development versus marketing versus other silos, for example. Others have never had that. Some have switched away from it to product-oriented units. So you have units basically focused on certain kinds of customers. You could say lean persona-oriented units. Well, these are the kinds of users that we will addressing. Another unit has these kinds of units and customers, and then within the units they make the products and services end to end, which basically makes sense for all of us as agile lean practitioners. End-to-end responsibility on every team, so that from the moment you come up with an idea to the delivery to a customer service, all of that is within the same team. The same people can address it. Then you can have multiple of these teams. You can slice according to functional areas in a product. If it is a larger product with multiple teams working on them. You could have some service teams or component teams or whatever you call them, but then they should operate as if they're part of a market. Then they are products, product teams that offer a product or service to the other teams in the organization, that they basically sell to the others with their own cadence of delivery, etc. And then at the top level, you could have an executive team that connects all the dots together with someone responsible for marketing across all those divisions, someone responsible for development across all those divisions. And that is the same pattern that I saw in many, in all those fast-scaling organizations. That seems to work best for them.
Okay, so the next one is about OKRs. Okay, so you said OKRs are so complicated for startups. So what would you recommend for them when they are asking for something to measure progress and success?
North Star metric. So North Star metric is very simple. You have one metric that matters, as Ash Maurya calls it. Others say North Star metric is the same thing. And it can change every now and then. Like for 2 months you focus on this thing, then for 3 months you focus on that thing, and for 2 months you focus on that thing, but you have laser focus on one thing that you're trying to optimize. Whether it is as I said, the number of minutes per user per month that they listen to Spotify or something like that. My team now, since last month, has a North Star metric of the amount of usage per person per week of our app, because that's what we want to increase. How much are they interacting? And we count everything like reading something on our app, using various items like adding stuff to a collection or sharing something online. All of those generate points because some things are more valuable than others. And the team came up with a formula where they now try to optimize how many points every user is generating in the system, which is a reflection, a proxy of how much they seem to like the app, because the more they interact with it, the more they like the information. It literally goes so far that the developers measure if it's how long is someone looking at the same page. If it is more than 4 seconds, then we assume that someone finds it interesting. If it's just 1 or 2 seconds, then they probably don't find it interesting, so it doesn't count. So they came up with a formula, and now they optimized that one thing for the next couple of months. Increased engagement. And hopefully we have it up to a certain level that we're satisfied. Then you can switch to a new North Star metric. You will keep having one eye on the previous one, because you don't want, of course, to go it back down when you focus on the next North Star metric to focus. So you keep an eye on the other stuff that you want to you want to keep there, but then maybe we will focus on the number of users on our system in the next 3 months and try to optimize that. Or maybe we will want to optimize revenue, because could be a new funding round after a couple of months, and you want to show new investors that revenue is going up. So we are going to tweak and run experiments with pricing and figure out what is the sweet spot of pricing. Do we get twice as many people if we reduce the fee or something like that? So, but then keep an eye on the other things that we just optimize. Otherwise, we have to start from scratch. That's not useful. But I like the idea of having one thing to focus on. And with OKRs, it is a bit more complex, more complicated, because you have a number of objectives, but it doesn't define which one is that most important one. And sometimes people struggle with 2, 3, 4 OKRs, and each objective has a number of metrics. So you have this entire dashboard full of stuff that you need to measure, and it's just, wow, it's quite overwhelming, I noticed.
Okay, so the next two ones are really related. So in this innovation model, it's possible in big firms with a lot of bureaucracy, legal compliance, data protection laws, how to hack all these things. And again, that is more or less the same question. Do you think that your model applies to big and old culture organizations?
I think models apply to many organizations. It's just that you need to tweak implementations, because like the life cycle, the human life cycle applies to all humans. It's just per human you will have different conclusions about what it specifically means. My little cousin, the son of my brother, has a birth deficiency mentally, so he is, my mother said that he's like 9 years old, but mentally he's 6. So it needs to be taken care of, and he's growing up a little more slowly than other kids, and he needs a bit of help. So he follows the life cycle, but in his own way, and that's fine, because there's diversity everywhere in the human race. So there's also plenty of diversity among organizations. It's not like everyone has exactly the same way of following the life cycle. We have to translate that to our context and see what it means, and what product market fit is for you is not exactly the same as what it means for another. And this startup will spend 3 years in this stage, and another can do it in 6 months, and all of that is possible. So there's quite a bit of variety, but the models, yeah, they're just abstract concepts that help us think. And there are other models, like there are different languages. We now communicate in English. Doesn't mean that English is better than Spanish or something. It's just a different language that we agree on so that we are able to communicate with each other. This models that I showed you, I like these models because they help me communicate with other people. If you have better models, sure, fine, you can use them as long as you agree on what you mean.
Okay, so a difficult one to read, okay?
Okay, do your best.
Elephant in the room. In my opinion, too much focus on TI methodology, on innovation. Forgetting human, including managers. Touch. Agree? Which challenges do you see?
So you need to read that again, because that was indeed a complicated one.
This one is.
Elephant in the room. In my opinion, too much focus on TI. What is TI methodology?
IT?
IT. Oh, okay. Yeah. Spanish order or something. Okay. TI doesn't mean anything to me.
We change everything. we put money before.
Yeah. And question marks upside down. It's totally crazy. On innovation, forgetting human, including managers. Touch. Agree. Which risk? Sorry, challenge. Sorry, this is just a very complicated. I cannot make head or tails of this.
Then we go to the next one, okay?
Yeah.
The next one, which we
make
are
it easier to read the question. Yeah.
So, using your model to to know your opinion about a concrete framework, someone said, in which stage is a Scrum Guide now?
Oh. In which stage is a Scrum Guide? The Scrum Guide is just a document. It is not a business model. So the business model is for us, there's Scrum Alliance and there's Scrum.org, and they have very similar business model, which is they make money off of certifications and workshops. It seems stage 7, it has proven there's an organization, it has scaled up. Maybe the scaling up is not going as rapidly anymore as it did in the last couple of years. I have not seen the figures, but I can imagine it's still growing fast, but maybe not exponential. So that would be stage 7. It's adult, making lots of money. It is time to invest in new ideas for those organizations, because at some point the certification model is going to die out, and you'll need to come up with something else. But for now, yeah, keep running it. And the Scrum Guide is just a marketing document that helps them to sell that business model of certification. Both competing organizations, basically Scrum.org, Scrum Inc. and Scrum Alliance, they're all doing very, very similar things with similar business models.
Okay, next one. Which is the biggest transformation that you have experienced in the industry, and which company was?
I don't do coaching or consultancy, so I am not involved in agile transformations. I just hear stories. I visit companies like I do now, and then sometimes people tell me about something, but it's just snapshots of that moment. Some are very enthusiastic, and sometimes people are almost crying on my shoulders. So I only have my own businesses that I take care of, and they are not in an agile transformation. I start the day we launch a company, we try to be lean agile from day one, so no transformation is necessary. But what I have seen is, I've heard lots of good things happening at Deutsche Bahn, which is a client where I am several times, and that's a big company. Just imagine that, the German railway, hundreds of thousands of people in very different kinds of units, and they're trying to be more agile with a very, very old business model, but still innovating. That's fascinating. Of course, everyone has heard of the Dutch example of ING. Which is interesting also from a personal perspective, because I am an ING client. I'm very happy with the banking app. The credit card division sucked major domo. It was horrible. So I gave up. They promised me a new system for checking my credit card details for 3 years. It never arrived, and I gave up. I just went elsewhere. So you can see, even within the same organization, you have good parts of the organization, you have bad parts of the organization, because the banking app is fantastic on my Android phone. I love it. But credit card, it sucked horribly. And so it is very difficult to say that this organization does things well or that organization does things well. Depends. Which part of the company are you looking at? There's thousands of people working for a bank that big. As ING in this case, or Deutsche Bahn. So they can give me wonderful examples of Deutsche Bahn in IT in Frankfurt, but in Berlin they will say, my God, but here everything sucks. So, very different. Yeah.
Okay, I'm quite sure that you will have people here taking note of your feedback. So, which model will you recommend for funding innovation in middle big companies?
Which mode of operation for funding?
For funding innovation.
For funding innovation. So my suggestion is that the executive team appoints an innovation board, like an innovation jury. Just start defining a game for innovation and give it an annual budget. And from that budget, the innovation board will have to pay for all the ideas that go through the funnel. And then what you need to do is set up the stages. What are the stages of performance that we're going to expect from those startups? You can use my early 5 stages of the life cycle. You can come up with something else, doesn't matter. But the first stage could, for example, just be hackathons, right? Just give you hackathons where you experiment for a day. Everyone can participate with their own day. They will have to convince their colleagues. But then out of all the ideas that get started, the crowd and the jury will vote on the best ideas, and those will make it to the second stage. And then the second stage gets a little bit of budget. Not enough, just enough budget to prove problem-solution fit. Because your product vision could be great, but now you need to test if customers actually want to use your product. So come up with tests, with mock-ups, with fake stuff, with landing pages, whatever, and come back to the jury with evidence that the potential customers would like this solution with a little bit of budget. And once you have done that, next stage would be, okay, finding a team. You get now a couple of months to find a team or whatever. So you define those stages, and every stage will be more expensive. There's the same in those TV programs, right? With X Factor and whatever. Every next stage will be more expensive, more TV. The celebrities will have to be paid who sit in the jury. They don't want to see 10,000 ideas. They just want to see a few for a day. And so the budgets get bigger. And I have a nice video that I use in my workshops of someone who was an expert in risk management. And he says it's the same with poker. He said when you play poker, you start with just $1 or $2 or euros. And then you get some cards, which is a bit of information. And then you know if they're good or bad cards. And then you bet a bit more. And then you get more cards. So he says as you learn more, you bet more. And that is maybe the best summary that he could give also for product development. As you learn more about the startups, you will bet more. But they will have to generate information about how successful their ideas are and how good they are at executing. Because very often, things fail not because the ideas are bad, but because the people who have the ideas are just really, really bad at executing it. And that needs to be tested as well. Just like the X Factor jury does with the performers. They test the actual execution of the performance. Not just the idea of an act. No, can you perform well? If not, sorry, try again another time. So that stage, that funnel has to be, someone has to think it up, has to define the stages, have to allocate, okay, this amount of budget we spend on this stage, this budget we spend on that stage, this amount we spend on that stage. We need to figure out how many can go to the next stage. Even if we have 100 ideas, we can only accept maybe 20 in stage 2, and then maybe only 5 in stage 3, maybe only 2, etc. So you come up with conversion rates and numbers, and then you know how you're going to spend the budget. You don't know who will win, but someone will win. It's just impossible to predict. And that is what you get rid of as the innovation committee. Like traditional committees are trying to predict who will win. You can't. You cannot predict who will win. You set up a system, you put all the incentives in place, you define the conversion rates, the budgets. The more you learn, the more you bet, and then someone will win. There's a guaranteed winner at the end. You have no idea who, but they will win based on actual performance, and that's what you want.
Which is the most useful or powerful management tool in your opinion or experience?
The most powerful tool, I think it is delegation poker, delegation levels. Because it has, it offers a language for discussion between people. There's level 1 to level 7. Level 1 is pure dictatorship. Level 7 is pure anarchy. But the best level of delegation usually sits somewhere in the middle. Like level 4 is, okay, let's agree together. Let's negotiate. Level 5 is you make the decision, but I want you to listen to my input first because I have some good ideas. And level 3 is I will listen to your input, but I decide. But I will listen to everyone in the room, and then I will come to a decision. This language turns out to be very useful for people, and they play delegation poker, which is a game around it, which is fun. And I think that one, together with moving motivators, has been the main success behind Management 3.0. Lots of other practices like kudo cards and what's the other one? Celebration grid and others. But the most successful, I think, is delegation levels. Yeah.
Okay, so right now there are many companies investing on agile transformation, innovation, and this kind of thing. So what do you think there will be after this, after agile, lean innovation, that the companies will be focusing on?
What will come after, once they're done with agile transformation, what they will be focusing on? I think continuous innovation. I think that's solving the innovator's dilemma, because you could do an agile transformation once, but for what? What's the point? I don't think agile transformation is a goal itself. There's no reason to be agile unless it is trying to help you survive and thrive as a company, trying to help you keep existing in an economy that is changing faster and faster, and other companies die more rapidly than they did in the past. So I think we survive as companies by always innovating, new ideas all the time, because if we stop innovating, we lose in the Red Queen race, as they call it, right? If you're standing still, it's the same as moving backward. So the goal is surviving and thriving in business for an organization. We do that by continuously innovating, sustaining innovation with our current products and services, and disruptive innovation with new products and services. And the only way to do that both, and that is called the innovator's dilemma, is to see the company as a family of business models, and with every successful product that we have, assume it will die. Just be very pessimistic about every business model you have. At some point, it will be dead. Now what do we do? How do we prepare for that? That means investing in the younger generation, make babies. So agile transformations is usually about the current product and service that we have to maybe extend its life, to be more adaptable to changes in the environment and be able to add features faster. LinkedIn is quite good at that. They gave you the example. They're quite agile as a company, but at some point LinkedIn will be dead. They cannot do that forever. And agile transformation is not teaching you how to survive that there's another company taking over. Well, you will prefer that it is your own product or service that's going to take over, because it will be your kids taking over the family jewels, or the family household and all the properties. You don't want everyone else to steal your stuff. So I think what comes out as agile transformation, if you've been able to do that, continuous innovation is the next one. Surviving forever as a family.
Okay, great. So coming back to your model, what is in the center of innovation vortex? It looks like if the product was going down the drain after starting up, scaling up, and screwing up.
What is in the middle? I don't know. I will keep it open. It's a vortex. I like the dynamics of a vortex. It's a whirlwind. It looks powerful. I think 7 circles are dull. It's just a visualization trick. So it looks dynamic. But indeed, some people now ask me, okay, but what's in the middle? It's like, okay, why does there have to be anything in the middle? Can we just not keep it empty? Why do people want to fill every single open spot with something? So I will keep it open to people's imagination. What you find in the middle. Maybe it's the Holy Grail or something. Maybe it's the eternal life as a company. That's in the middle. Eternal life as an organization. You know.
Okay, so how do you think the culture of different countries could kill the innovation?
Oh, how can different cultures of countries kill innovation? Well, I heard that in Spain you suffer a little bit from bureaucracy. Is that true? People tell me. Like it takes I think 1 day in the UK to start a new company. I think in the Netherlands it takes maybe 2 or 3 days. I heard in Spain it takes weeks, even longer. Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem this society needs to fix. It helps the current companies, of course, that it is harder for startups to emerge. It's just more work, But I mean, where there's a will, there is a way. So the strong ones will do it, and they will set up new companies. But that, in general, the bureaucracy of a culture, and you see it not only in Spain, but of course also in other Southern European cultures, that this is an issue. That is why many examples of successful agile transformations, they are from the north, from Sweden, from the Netherlands, because we don't suffer from the bureaucracy that much. There's a little bit, but not to that extent. There's also much less corruption than in the East, for example. Certain Eastern European countries suffer from corruption. The further you go east, the more corruption there seems to be. And that is a problem if you want to do things in an agile way. If you want to motivate people with values and principles, and then at the same time the company has to pay government officials to, or something like that. That's not a good environment to live in. But yeah, now we address societal problems that we cannot simply solve here in this room today. That is something a whole country needs to work on. And it can take a long time, I'm sure.
Okay, so people decide which questions to make, okay? And there is one question which is killing people, right?
Okay.
Where did you find that shirt?
Where did I find On Facebook. I saw it on Facebook. I saw lots of colorful shirts. I love colorful shirts because I'm in my midlife crisis. So it adds a bit of color to my personality, I suppose.
So that's perfect, because this will lead to the next question. In your opinion, which is the state of Facebook now?
Oh, good one. Well, it has finished accelerating, so it is definitely either in 7 or in 8. Maybe it is 8 already, because there's so much criticism and it is trying to stay relevant, and people are actually moving away now to Instagram, which is silly because it's the same company. Yeah, my kids are on Instagram, they're not on Facebook. I don't get the hang of Instagram. I just don't understand how that works. I'm an old guy. I'm on Facebook. But yeah, so probably it's a stage 8, 7 or 8, I would think, and it's trying to stay relevant. But, and that is what Mark Zuckerberg and the others have done right, they have invested in the younger generation. They literally bought those companies. And that is one strategy that you can have as an organization. You just buy them. You don't raise them yourself, those kids. You just adopt them, basically, in the family. And then they're your kids, and then they can take over the family if you're unable to create the kids yourself. But the best strategy, of course, is to have those kids yourself, because if maybe someone else is adopting them, and then you're too late. So Mark Zuckerberg was fast in buying Instagram and WhatsApp, but others, they delay the conversations a bit too long, and then, oops, they're left with nothing, because then competitors swooped in and bought those companies, and then you're left with no babies of your own and nobody to adopt. That's a bad situation to be in. Yeah.
Okay, so the next one, what do you think about Agile coach role? What do you think will be the feature of this career or role in companies?
So what do I think of Agile coach role?
The role of an Agile coach.
Oh, the role of an Agile coach. Well, I think coaching is always needed. What you call it, Agile coaching or whatever, you see in other industries, in health, fitness. Plenty of coaches around the world. It's a booming industry, helping people out with their fitness. I personally don't have a coach because I like to do stuff by myself. But my partner has a fitness coach. I know others who have coaches. So yeah, I think there will always be coaching. I don't know if we will keep calling it Agile coach, because the word Agile, it has probably a lifespan. It's still a good word. I show that in the metrics, the trends. But at some point, maybe we're not going to call things agile anymore. Like the example that I always that I like to offer is nobody's using the term cyberspace anymore. That was a term that we used in the 80s and the 90s. Remember that? Yes. Oh, cyberspace. That was wow. All those computers connected with everything. That was so wow. Imagine that everything was connected. Well, now everything is connected, and we stopped talking about cyberspace because we are now all in cyberspace. It is everywhere around us. So, like a fish does not have a term for water. It doesn't even know what water is. It is part of its natural habitat. So I think Agile is going to be the new normal. That is just the way we run things. There's no alternative, basically, to fast feedback cycles and all that stuff. We will stop calling it Agile at some point. It's just the way we do things around here. But there will always be a need for people to be coached. There will be jobs for people who help others to perform well in their organization and to teach them principles and practices that we now call agile and lean, but we will give up on those predicates, lean and agile, I think. But the coaching role, yeah, I don't see any reason why that would disappear.
Okay, and let's finish with one question related to the things you have explained. So, do you know 3X, explore, expand, extract, from Kent Beck? How is it related with the phases you just explained?
I've heard of it, and I do not know the definition of it. I had no time to look into it yet. So I'm sorry to say I also do not know how it maps onto my stuff. But I'm sure it's just another fine model because it's Kent Beck and he's super intelligent, so it must be something smart. That somehow maps onto the stuff that I'm doing. Many people in the world come up with different models for more or less the same thing. Sometimes they're small models, sometimes they're big models. And you just pick the one that you like best. Like, which language do you like talking in? Well, pick English, Dutch, Spanish, whatever. Pick what you're comfortable with. But I don't know how the words in Spanish map onto English because I don't speak Spanish. I also don't know the 3X model. Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's all. Do we have time for one more question? It's enough? Okay, so we will finish here. So we will have a coffee out there. So thank you so much for everybody for coming, and especially from Jurgen for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Jurgen Appelo.